Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day, everyone. Welcome back to another live edition of Trading the Markets with Kris Bullock, aka Blastoplast. This is the show where we talk about the markets, talk about some trades that we're looking at, some trades from the community. And of course, if you have any trades that you would like us to look at or any coins that you would like Kris to do some TA on, just drop your questions in the live chat on X and we will answer as many as we can. This week has been exciting so far. You know, we've had some crypto brought in some fresh highs. We've seen some institutional moves, and it wouldn't be crypto Web3 if we didn't have a major hack to talk about as well. Solana opening the week leading all majors. Hype hits a new all-time high. NASDAQ has filed for tokenized stock trading. BNB and Franklin Templeton have announced the collab, which we will dive into BNB as well. And of course, I'm sure as many of you heard, on Monday there was a major supply chain hack that hit JavaScript libraries, but quick action limited the damage, and users were at the time advised to pause all risky transactions. Seems like things are in the clear for now, but only time will truly tell. And on the NFT side of things, OpenSea has really hit the crypto Twitter waves with a very bullish announcement on Monday, and giving some updates ahead of their C token launch, with more details coming in October. But we're going to see a new web mobile app with AI NFT trading. They're going to be launching a flagship collection backed by a 7-figure treasury. And they have their final pre-token generation phase that 50% are going to go to OpenSea traders. So my recommendation or my suggestion for you all is, if you have the time, if you're interested in the C token, go play around and do some airdrop farming on OpenSea. They have some voyages for you to, see if you can get more C token when that eventually does drop. But Kris, happy Wednesday. How are you doing? Oh, actually, one more thing as well. How could I forget? CPI data came in lower than expected today. So that's probably why we're seeing a little bit of a rally now. Obviously, we're in full altcoin season rally, or maybe not full, but in an altcoin season rally. Kris, how are you doing today? Happy Wednesday.
Doing well, thank you. Yes. It seems like I need to get over to OpenSea and mess around a bit. It's funny, I wonder, I've obviously done tons and tons of OpenSea activity going back years now, back last cycle when they first came about. I've traded, bought and sold tons of NFTs, but I haven't been super active in NFTs really lately, over the last few months or, year or so. So I wonder how that's going to work out in terms of an airdrop for me. I'm curious. I'll have to find out.
They better have some retroactive rewards for those of us that were in the glory days of the NFT in 2021.
You would think so. I've definitely gotten airdrops for activity that I've done on wallets that I hadn't touched for years. Like I remember, I think Celestia or some random thing came out, a year or two ago. And I got an airdrop. I qualified for an airdrop based on wallet activity that I'd had on a wallet literally I hadn't touched in I don't know how long, and so I was like, wow, that's crazy. But I guess we'll find out. Yeah. So anyway, what's going on today? Really not a whole lot has changed since Monday, as is often the case. I kind of wanted to just quickly recap what my sort of base case that I talked about on Monday and talk about what has changed since then. So my thought on the show on Monday was basically either one of two things. Either we kind of continue to run up a little bit and bump up against resistance, here around the let's say 115 to 118 level, and then bounce back down and sort of roll back down into a cycle low later towards the end of the month before ultimately rallying out. That was one scenario that I thought it honestly is probably the most likely still, even today. Like, I'm not super excited. Yeah, it's a nice rally. Yeah, Bitcoin's up a chunk. Yeah, lots of alts are up. But I still think that, there's a sign of danger. And I've been talking about this for some weeks now. Don't get too euphoric over this rally. I predicted there would be a rally. And I also am continuing to predict that it will bounce back down a bit before ultimately running. And so that's one scenario. Now, the other scenario that I talked about on Monday is if we go back and look historically at the last 2 Septembers in a row, the first and second week of September proved to be the bottom and the low, and everything ripped out from there. And so, in 2024, the week of September 2nd was the low. The week of September 9th was green, and that started the run. And if we go back to 2023, same thing. The week of September 11th was green, and that ultimately started this big run. So there's a bit of a historical precedent for the second week of September to act as a bottom. It certainly has the last 2 years in a row. And we are seeing decent, green candles. Obviously, we're seeing good activity. So maybe this is a three-peat, and we do get the bottom. Another thing I'm kind of looking at, though, in terms of like the technicals is, I'm trying to kind of clean up this chart here. Let me hide this for a second. So we've got this 10-week moving average here, and Bitcoin has been below it for a bit. And I'm looking at this too as potential resistance. So really what I'm wanting to see is a solid weekly close above this 10-week moving average. And let's go back and compare it to kind of the previous 2 Septembers. It took a minute. So it didn't actually close above the 10-week moving average until the middle of September. But it did. It really, went up strong, although it did kind of retrace a little bit and come back down and retest it before ultimately running. And then a bit the same thing in 2023. It did break out. It didn't, it took until the final week of September for it to ultimately close the week above the 10-week moving average. And then it too came back down and retested it briefly before resuming. So that kind of falls in line also with the whole notion of it potentially getting rejected here, rolling back over a tick, and then resuming. So I guess we'll see. But the things look good in the moment. I like what we're seeing in terms of the green. What else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, I do think that, like you said at the top of the show, the PPI data did come in favorable. I've been looking at like the poly market on that, because I do think that, we're starting to see potentially the odds increase of a 50 basis point cut. And I think if that happens, that will definitely serve to fuel a rally to the upside across the board. It'll be interesting to watch this play out. We'll get the PPI data tomorrow, or I'm sorry, the CPI data tomorrow. The Fed meeting isn't until a week from today. And so it'll be interesting to sort of watch this number, especially after the data comes in tomorrow, to see if this number increases or not. So I'll be paying close attention to that. I think if we do get a 25 point cut, that's pretty much baked in at this point. I don't really think that's going to have a huge impact on the market. I could still easily see us roll back over a little bit in that scenario if we just get the 25 cut. But if we get the 50, I think that's, we're off to the races. So I'm going to be paying pretty close attention to that as well. Outside of that, I do think, like you said, Bijan, we are in a bit of an alt rally at the moment. Alts are kind of leading the way. Bitcoin is plugging in there, but alts, like if we look at Ethereum, has kind of tailed off a little bit, Ethereum dominance, but alt dominance has increased, has ticked up, and meme dominance has ticked up quite a bit as well. So the money is definitely flowing further out the risk curve. We knew ETH was going to take a bit of a breather, though it is starting to show signs of potentially bottoming and starting to round back up. It's starting to show signs of like sellers being exhausted. We're starting to see like the MACD kind of starting to roll back up. We're starting to see RSI starting to roll back up. We're starting to see, what else do we got here? I think we got some good indications on this one as well. We had a DMARC 8 here towards the bottom, and it's pretty much just held that. It sort of held support at this track line, and it is starting to round back up too. So I think ETH, it's a little bit early to tell, but I think the breather that ETH was taking is starting to cool off, and it looks like it could be rounding back up. But I do think that alts are going to continue to be strong. We're seeing that also supported by looking at the bull market support band here. We can see that 60% of alts in the top 100, or rather just 60% of assets in the top 100 are in weekly uptrends. So that again speaks further to the point that money is flowing out the risk curve into a lot of the alt sector. Granted, it is concentrated primarily into the top 40. We can see about 30, I think 31 or so of the top 40 are in the green, whereas it starts to kind of tail off a little bit as we go further down the list. But this is a strong sign too, and it's also a strong sign that stuff in the top 40 is really where the best bets are, honestly. I mean, sure, there's other stuff out here that has good upside too, but if you're wanting to go out the risk curve and not go too far out, you don't have to go far, and you can still get really solid plays here in the top 40. So yeah, things are looking good right now, I think,
Yeah.
outside of the do we top or not.
Yeah, well said. And I want to hear your guys' thoughts. If we are at the bottom, if you think this is the bottom right now, let us know in the comments what you guys think. And you know what you just said about alts, kind of it's my new theory, right? Whereas last cycle it was, you heard that common phrase, rising tides lift all ships. This time around, though, I think it's going to be rising tides lift some ships. And I think
yes,
evident of that is how it's mostly concentrated in the top 40. So keep that in mind when you guys are playing around with alts, so you're going further down the risk curve as well. It's not, I mean, it could be, right? But I really don't think it's going to be like last cycle where everything was seemingly going up. There will be some that are better than others, and it is up to us to identify those.
Well, I think the key is just, you're gonna have to do your homework. You're gonna have to put the work in. You're gonna have to, sure, there are going to be good gems outside of, say, that top 40, like you said, but it's not just gonna be automatic. You can't just throw money at anything and assume it's gonna go up. You're gonna have to really dig into the charts, see what's doing, what's in an uptrend, what's outperforming, and be active, and be engaged. It's not just automatic anymore.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we started the show with two very bullish things, right? And I know a lot of people that watch this show have are heavily invested in Solana. So why don't we take a look at what Solana's doing, where we think it can continue to run, and then I want us to take a look at hype, because hype just hit a new all-time high. So definitely exciting stuff happening in the alt world.
So yeah, totally. So both Solana and Hype are frankly crushing it right now. Solana, again, it never really went into any kind of a corrective phase. Like, just quickly, if you say look at Bitcoin, it peaked back here August 14th, and it kind of even broke its uptrend. It's red candles. You compare that to Solana, and Solana's setting new highs. It's just, here was the corrective phase where Bitcoin peaked right here. Solana basically just came down to support, bounced, and went on and set higher highs and higher lows. And it's like, what downtrend? What correction? It's just crushing it. It just keeps right on going. And then what was the other one you said?
Hype.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Hype, of course, yeah. Hype too. Hype is in price discovery basically as we speak, setting also new all-time highs. A little bit warning on Hype, though. We are seeing potentially a little bit overbought. We're starting to see like a DMARC 9 here, a bearish divergence here, and then I think if we look at it on this channel or on this chart too, yeah, big DMARC 9, and then if I hide this real quick, yeah, also a bearish divergence flag. So Hype is a little bit cooked potentially, but this may or may not mean anything. Like, I think if the whole market runs, we could see a scenario back here in May where it got even a bigger bearish divergence flag. It got a DMARC 9, and it just blew right on by it like it wasn't even there, and just kept right on going. And so, of course, this doesn't automatically mean it's time to sell. That means, or it's going to correct or mean revert even, or anything like that. There's a chance it could run here. And even here, back then on the previous one, it only dipped a little bit. It did mean revert back to its 20-day moving average, but it kept ripping basically. And so I wouldn't necessarily get too hung up on this, but if you're looking for an entry, buy entry, for example, maybe give it a day or two to see if it does cool off. But of course it might not also.
Yeah, well said. So we also, offline, we were talking about bullish kind of partnership with Binance and Franklin Templeton. So Binance, and Kris, you were saying too, Binance is a very underrated coin, or a coin that doesn't get, as much love as it should. Like, it's a top 5 coin, or, and we never, ever really talk about it. So why don't we take a look at what Binance is doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, I've been sort of touting the virtues of the BNB token going back years, cycles even, because I remember even in like the depths of like 2018, early 2019, when the whole crypto market was bottoming, Binance token was outpacing Bitcoin back then. It held up better than Bitcoin did in that bear market. And it's one of maybe 2 or 3 or 4 major tokens that have gone on to set new all-time highs against Bitcoin in subsequent 4-year cycles. Like even Ethereum hasn't done that. Like Ethereum set its initial all-time high against Bitcoin in its initial 4-year cycle. It has not gone on and set new all-time highs against Bitcoin since then. BNB has. And so like BNB is actually really strong and they've got great tokenomics, great mechanics, they're with their token burns and their, the discounts and everything that comes with holding it. And so I'm not surprised at all to see it doing well. But yeah, it announced this morning a partnership with Franklin Templeton. And if you've been, a member of Real Vision for any length of time, you'll know that Franklin Templeton is kind of one of the pioneers in terms of really adopting blockchain and everything, just digital assets and everything onto sort of their platforms. They're one of the most innovative TradFi platforms out there in terms of like adopting crypto, adopting blockchain, and really just kind of pushing the envelope in terms of bringing everything together. And honestly, I think that they're doing really, really well. And so to see that they've announced basically with Binance to help Binance, to have them build out this sort of digital asset initiative, I can't talk, I think is really strong for Binance too. And we can see it resulted in a new all-time high in the price of the token right now. So BNB is crushing it. It's doing well. And I think it should be on people's radars. It's not going to be something that's going to do a 10x. It's going to be more like a steady, like you want to have it at the bottom of your portfolio to anchor it, with like a good allocation to kind of temper the volatility a little bit, because it's always going to be doing well. It's always going to be going up. It's never going to be too crazy. And it's just, it's like an important, I think, asset to have as part of like a well-rounded portfolio, and so I like BNB and I think it should be talked about more.
Yeah, absolutely. We back, if you guys will remember, back in July, mid-July, Raoul sat down with Sandy Call of Franklin Templeton, and she basically teased all of this. She didn't mention Binance by name, but she basically teased all of this was coming very soon for Franklin Templeton and other institutions as well. They're not the only ones doing it. They are kind of leading the charge to an extent, but a lot more of this is coming down the pipeline. So just keep an eye on those. And it's probably going to be some of the stronger ones, like the Binances of the world. Maybe a Solana will come into play. So just keep that in XRP potentially as well. So just keep all of those things in mind because the institutions are making major moves adopting this technology. Now, speaking of major institutions and major moves, SPX had some big news. They got the coveted Coinbase listing finally. I know a while back, you'll remember it was announced on the roadmap schedule, which, we talked about on Monday, is different than the actual listing. But nice to see SPX. It's a community favorite. Got that Coinbase listing. So what's going on with SPX? Why is it just continue to be so bullish? Even though sometimes, the price, I know last week, a lot of people were complaining about the price, but I think that's just price is whatever, right? There's so many bullish things behind the scenes with SPX. Why is that, Kris?
Yeah, honestly, the price is irrelevant, and I'm sure the community will be the first ones to tell you that. But I think one thing that really stood out to me was I had stumbled on this report from this DeFi report website the other day, and it really, really took me by surprise, honestly, as I'm going to go through this here. There's some just fantastic charts, and I didn't realize just how, I guess, powerful SPX had become, and so yeah, I'm just going to kind of scroll through some of these. But what this is just a report of a bunch of different lists of like on-chain metrics of, different elements of meme coins. And so things like, let's say, median and average holding. So SPX leads the pack far and away in terms of the average wallet balance and the median wallet balance by more than double any other meme coin out there, basically. Here's another one, like the number of holders with more than $1,000 also leads it by double-digit percents. The number of holders with more than $10,000 also double the next highest one below it. Holders with number of 100,000 or more almost double the next one below it. You can kind of see a trend here. The number of wallets with the fewest, with less than $100, it's got the lowest percentage amongst all these meme coins. Whale retention, like it's got the highest number of whales that have never sold, by a pretty good margin. And it kind of goes on and on. I encourage you to go look at this. It's on just the DeFiReport.io. Really, really cool website. You have to sign up to read the report, but it is free and you can view it. But it just goes to show that, like, again, it doesn't matter what the price is. The community is there for SPX, clearly. I mean, it's not going anywhere. These are diamond-handed holders. They are not selling, and they've got this amazing mission, and you can see just everything is blowing up. And I encourage people to go over and look on Reddit, because Reddit has become kind of the new sort of home for SPX. And so get over on Reddit, go to the SPX 6900 subreddit, sign up on there, and this is where the action is. And like the subscriber count has been just, ripping up quite a bit lately. And so go over on Reddit and just get involved, and you'll start to see right away, oh, I can see why this is doing well, why this is a thing. Really cool community. It's not just, I love it too, because unlike a lot of other subreddits and everything else, Twitter and everything else, this isn't just full of bots and sort of shit posting. It's like actual real humans engaging with each other in really cool conversations and helping each other out and just kind of furthering the message and spreading the word, and it's great. I love it. So if you're into SPX at all, Reddit's the place to be at the moment.
Good shout there. Good little bit of alpha as well to go dive into SPX. So I do want to take a question here from Sebastian. Will there be a dip since Bitcoin weekly MACD is negative, but there hasn't been a dip since? So will Bitcoin and altcoins see a dip in September? And here's where I think is most important part of his questions. Does it make sense to sell to buy cheaper?
Well, kind of just how I started off the top of the show, my sort of thesis is that there will be a dip. Whether I'm not necessarily basing that off of the MACD, but there's plenty of indicators that give me reason to think that there could be. Hold on, where did this go? That said, I don't know that I would sell. And the reason for that is because I'm very 50-50 on if there will be a dip or not. I mean, that's kind of what I've been saying this whole show is I could go either way. We've got the hot, inflation data coming in, or not hot, but favorable, I guess. We've got a big rate cut coming. Things are shaping up potentially to be good. We know historically, I just showed you historically the last 2 years in a row, September did prove to be the bottom. So if we do get a dip, it might just come in the form of kind of like I touched on here, where we get a little bit of a breakout, comes back down, sort of just retest that 10-week moving average, and then just goes from there. And so it's going to be really tricky. I think we're in a phase of the 4-year cycle and a phase of this bull market where, they always say surprises come to the upside. And so if you're going to bet on downside price action and bet it's going to come down to a certain level, the odds are high that you could end up being wrong. And what I hate to see happen is, you sell thinking you're clever, you sell up here, and maybe it only comes back down to say 110, 112, somewhere in there, and then just rips back up, and you don't ever get any chance to sort of buy back in. And next thing you know, you're standing there on the sidelines and Bitcoin's sitting at 130, and so you really got to be careful. Your risk is sort of higher by the day that play isn't going to work out. And so for me, I'm just going to sit tight. I'm just going to wait it out. To me, it's not worth picking up an extra 3 or 4% here and there. It's just not worth the risk of accidentally, executing that poorly and being left on the sidelines and having to buy back in significantly higher than where I sold. And so that's just my personal philosophy. I've played that a few times and gotten burned doing that. And, I'm over it at this point.
Yeah. It's a dangerous game to play.
It is a dangerous game to play.
Yeah, I would say, listen, Sebastian, if you're going to keep your eye on those charts to kind of, and again, even if you are keeping your eye on the charts, really, it's almost impossible to time the top and bottom to actually make it even worth your while. Because you also have to imagine if you're selling, you're taking a tax, you have a taxable event there, right? And if you made money on that, is it really worth it to go back? And so you got to really kind of weigh all of those things in when you're trying to play that game. So I want to go to this next question from a man who has kind of a similar question, but also wants to know where in particular we would deploy powder into. So Manuel asks, if one is dry powder, do you one deploy now or wait for a possible pullback at the end of September? Or two, among the major alts, where would you deploy at this stage? Solana, BNB, Doge, Hype, or Sui?
So in terms of when to deploy, there's no way anybody's going to know if it's the top or the bottom, or if there's even going to be a dip, or if there's not. And so all you can really do is just DCA, and just, some of your buys are going to be better than others. Some will be higher, some will be lower, and that's kind of, you can just play the average, and that's going to be the best way to play it, because otherwise you're going to kind of be kicking yourself if you try to buy low and you don't get your buy doesn't fill, or or whatever, or you buy high and price rips, price goes down again after that. So you just got to DCA, whether that means once every few days or once, well, we're kind of getting into September now. So I would say, yeah, break it up into whatever, 3 or 4 or 5 chunks, and every handful of days, just buy a chunk of whatever. In terms of what you should buy, I guess more the question is, what's your risk tolerance and how much are you hoping to get out of it? Because, the higher up the market cap is, the less it's going to go up between now and whatever the end, whatever that means. And so something like, say, BNB or even Solana, they're not going to do a 5x from here. They're going to maybe do a 2 or 3x. I feel like, being just kind of conservative. You have to assume it's going to be a conservative guess. And so just if a 2 or 3x is fine with you, then put it into, Solana or BNB even. If you want to kind of go a little bit further out the risk curve, put it into something like Sui. Sui could do a 3 to 5x, but also it might do a 2x, or less. It might underperform. We don't know, because it's further out the risk curve. So I can't tell you which one to put your money in. All I can do is sort of give you the school of thought that I would sort of go through in terms of how I would evaluate that. Yeah.
Yeah, Manuel, that's definitely great advice. Just if I'm going to choose from your list there, I would put it in Hype and Sui, just because I want to go, because we're talking about just the major alts here. I want to go as far down the risk curve as I can on those. So I'm looking at Hype and Sui. They're both kind of going to be hitting price discovery. So yeah, that's where I would put it.
And honestly, if I had to pick between those two right now, I would go with Hype. I think that they're both very similar in terms of their market cap, and I just feel like Hype really has a lot of momentum right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, that's gonna do it for questions. I do want to highlight one trade idea that was put on our platform from one of our members, Luis, who told us to buy Pengu. If you've been watching this show, we've been telling you just that for a long time now. We told you last week as well, continue playing around in the abstract ecosystem. But I wanted to highlight Luis's trade, not only because he's up double digits percentage, but he just really goes in depth on Pengu. He gives you a full picture on what Pengu is, what they're doing, what their value proposition is, why they're important to the market. He just lays it all out. He basically talks about the history of the Pudgy Penguin ecosystem. So it was one of the most kind of well thought out, well reasoned, in-depth trades I've seen on the platform in a long time. He also throws in a couple of charts with some indicators as well to back his thesis. So definitely check that out. And also, even if you're not going to take that trade, but you want to learn more about Pengu, I think this is probably one of the best places to learn about it, because he compiled all the information and put it all into one place. So great job, Luis, on the trade. And thank you for really taking the time to give us a full picture of what's going on in that ecosystem. Kris, anything?
That's awesome.
I know we have the Fed meeting coming next week, which we'll probably talk about it next week on our show. I do also want to let you know that our show will be starting just 15 minutes later next week. So just kind of keep that in mind. We will be going live at 1:15 ET. But Kris, until we see everyone again on Monday, what are your thoughts heading into the weekend? Anything we should keep an eye out for, or what you got?
I mean, it's funny. It kind of like, as I feel like I say this every time, but just sort of keep your expectations in check over the next 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know that the bottom is necessarily in yet. But even if it's not, that's okay, because if it's not in now, it'll be in, you know, in a week or two. And so it's just like, don't get too overexcited at any rally just yet. You know, we've got a little bit of work to do from a technical standpoint to kind of break some of the resistance levels and the metrics that I'm looking for before we can definitively say that the bottom is in and that we're going to continue higher. So we're just not quite there yet. We're kind of in a little bit of a no man's land, and we just have to going to take a minute for it to play out.
Well said. We'll see you guys on Monday, same time, in Discord and live on platform. And we'll see you again next week on Wednesday. Have a great week, everyone. Until next time.